Alright, what's going on, guys? This is going to be the third video on the school budget thing. This will be the last one. The last video I showed you guys why your or explained why your property taxes were going up, and at the end I asked, what happens if you actually vote the budget down? The answer kind of surprised me a little bit when I found out exactly how all this stuff works, and it might surprise you too. So there's a common misconception, I think, or at least there was a big misconception that I had, and that's that if you vote no, it doesn't actually freeze the budget or keep your taxes where they are. The district gets two chances basically to pass the budget, and if it fails, then they go to what they call a contingency budget, and that kicks in by law. So let me see here what that actually entails. All right, so there's two kind of components to how this all works. One is the actual tax levy percentage, and then the other one is the proposed school budget. Now, New York State covers I'm outside trying to enjoy the sun. I just got off nights, so I haven't seen the light of day for like 3 days, so bear with me. I'll try to stop talking as cars go by so you can hear me. But basically, New York State, and I'll have the links in the description of all of the sites that I'm getting this information from, all primary sites, official government sites. New York State covers 71% of Fulton's budget, so that Fulton City School District that I'm in, which is about $67 million, and then the local taxes cover the rest of that bill. And the state law caps that tax at 2% per year, or the rate of inflation, whatever is the lesser amount. So it's been 2% for the last 3 years. And what that number kind of looks like is on a $100,000 home, the increase is about $52 a year, or $4 a month. So the actual hit you take is far less than you would actually imagine, at least far less than I imagined. My assumption was that, my tax would be going up by $100, $200, $300 a year on something like this, or more on a $15 million increase in 3 years. I mean, I would think it'd be much more, but I didn't know the percentage that New York State actually covered. So the hit you take is really minimal for something like this, and the risk that you take in voting no is actually quite substantial. So what a contingency budget actually means, the way this works is they can put a budget out, and it gets voted on. If it doesn't pass, then they can retry again to get it to pass, and if that doesn't pass, then they can go to a contingency budget. At least that's the way it works in New York State. A contingency budget really starts to cut things that we would actually probably prefer our kids have access to, like extracurricular activities, sports, music classes, things like that. Let me see if I can't get a little list here of what actually gets cut, because there's actually some crazy stuff here. Yeah, so you're looking at music, after school programs, and sports really being the big three. And something similar to this is going on right now in Rome, New York. They just had their budget fail by 51%, which is kind of crazy. It's like 24 people voted, over 50% voted no, and it's interesting because I would think that if they had seen this video, that probably wouldn't have happened. because there's probably a majority of them that are just like me who don't actually know how this is working in the background, and so they think by downvoting that budget that they have something to gain, which really there's nothing to gain and a lot to lose, at least for their kids. I would assume that most of the people voting on this stuff care because their kids are in that school, but yeah, it's quite interesting. So that's a real world example that's going on right now. It's interesting to see how that's going to pan out. If they end up, it's probably going to pass the second time. If they go to a contingency budget, that's going to suck for the kids of Rome School District. So the real question you kind of got to ask yourself is like, whether the negative repercussions are worth it or not for that very minuscule increase in tax. The first two videos kind of had you believe that the tax increase was substantial, and I specifically did that to kind of cliffhang a little bit and dive into or lean with the misconception so that this kind of hits a little bit harder for people, and hopefully that gets across in this. If you don't really know how things work, you could have a lot of misconceptions, and you could end up hurting yourself or your community and not even know it, or for very, very small minimal gain. So that's going to be it for this one. Nothing too crazy, but I would like to leave you guys with a little quote here from Thomas Jefferson. He once said, "An informed citizenry is the only true repository of the public will." So I'll leave you guys with that.